I will now ask the speaker who could not speak, or one of the speakers who could not speak this morning because he also has to leave shortly. So I would like to ask Mr. Schöpges now to come and speak to us.
Guten Tag. Bonjour à tout le monde.
Hello, everyone. Unfortunately, I can't speak English, so I'll speak German. Just something shortly about myself personally. I come from Belgium, from the German-speaking part of Belgium. Does Belgium actually exist anymore? We could ask the question because we've had no government for quite some time now. I am professionally, my main activity is a dairy farmer. I have production of 500,000 liters.
And my 16-year-old daughter is part of it. Agriculture is a topic that is really more important than most of you are aware of. Firstly, some history, how I built up my business, how I was brought up. I've been in this business for 25 years. I took it over from my parents. We had 35 dairy cows. We produced 50,000 liters of milk on the farm. All our family lived off of this business. When I took it over, the first thing that was said to me was that your business is too small. It is not going to survive. You have to, as soon as possible, double it. I was young, so I did it. I brought it up to 300,000 liters from 150,000. So within 10, 15 years, I doubled my business. When I did this, the traditional labor unions came to me. They said, you have to double it again. 5 years ago, my neighbor shut down. She had a quota of 200,000 liters of milk, so I took that over as well. So in the last 25 years, I actually tripled my production. Today, my son is 19, and he's going to take over my business. My son says to me today, I'm sorry, you have no chance with your business. You have to have 1 million liters of milk on your farm, and with the same staff. And I always ask myself, how am I going to follow the system, or is there something different? So 5 years ago, I decided to become political, to think about the situation and research. And I've been with the European Milk Port, where you had 15 countries coming together, 1,500 members. The situation on the farms all over Europe, the farms are indebted. In Denmark, the farms are so indebted that they can't pay back their capital. They just pay back the interest rate. And so you see really how the European policies are going in a bad direction. You don't pay back on the capital, you pay back on the interest rates. And the development on dairy farms is as follows. The farms are so indebted that many farms, I don't want to say all, but most of them, belong to the banks. They don't belong to the farmers anymore. They belong to the industry. Companies like Nestle, Danone, all these companies buy them up with 2,000 cows, 1,000 cows, and the farmers are just workers, as slave workers that don't even belong in the system. And behind the whole system, what you find is the real basis is that the banks, the big capital, the industries, they want to basically take over the dairy production, over all of the food production worldwide. They're buying land up all over the world. These banks are buying up even the smallest farms. And if you think about it, the energy supply is already in their hands. If they are going to control the food production, the next that's going to happen is water. They're going to take over the water, they're going to privatize it. And when these three things are in their hands, then you control the planet. And that's why agriculture, the farmers, they're there to produce food for the population. And we're now dependent on the banks. We're dependent on being subsidized by them. Oh, and now politics is really into this now. If we don't go along, our premiums are going to be reduced so that we are forced to keep our mouths shut. And that's why our position is that we need parity prices for farmers, doesn't matter in what branch. We don't want these premiums. We don't want to be subsidized. And this morning we spoke about the banking crisis. I don't think it was a banking crisis. It was a crisis for the normal person on the street, for the population. We had a milk crisis. And we spoke about, it being a dairy crisis. No, the dairies got their profits. But we, on the farms, we paid for that. We actually pay for each liter of milk for 15 cents, 18 cents. And if you think about how these dairy concerns get the same amount of profit we paid for it, it was a crisis of the farmers, a not of the firms. So what do we do? The price was too low. So we got together in Europe. We had many activities. We were in Brussels for 2 days. We were there with our tractors all over Europe to really put pressure on the politicians to go away from liberalism, and we saw that it didn't help anything. September 2009, we made a strike, a delivery strike. We just didn't deliver it because we didn't see any way out. The high point of this delivery strike in Belgium, we just poured out 3,000 liters of milk onto the fields. And you have to understand that people are going hungry, and we are forced to pour out our milk onto the fields. We were so attacked harshly by third world organizations that we are not thinking about this. I couldn't believe it, that most support should have come from them. Because European policies are exporting our milk subsidized. It's cheaper there. We destroy the third world nations. The small farmer with 3-4 cows, we're destroying them. And not only are we being destroyed, but we're also destroying the milk production, the dairy production in the third world countries. And so you see that this European policy is terrible. Then the next reaction of the political layers was the intervention, which was basically buying up all of the milk at very low prices, dumping prices. They store it, and as soon as the price goes up, then the EU, the European Union Commission, sells this milk for a higher price. They told us that this intervention was there to help us so that the milk price goes up. But at the same time, the European Commission, through the speculation, the EU is the biggest speculator in milk and food because they bought the milk very cheaply and stored it, and then they sold it at a higher price, and that's how they work. What is the next step for politics? They are not taking responsibility for all of this. So we have a milk quota, which is a right to supply. So you're allowed to produce a specific amount of milk. And so they've decided now that it is going to be completely liberalized. Now the dairy concerns, the firms, is saying that we can't buy up all of this milk. And so the production is going to these dairy firms. So 70–80% of these firms are in a society, and most of them belong to the farms. So that should be perfect. But strangely enough, these firms, which should be working together, their operational business has been put into speculation. So the farmers are just responsible for getting the milk together, but the supply is actually being controlled by these speculators, and they want profits. And you see it with cereals, and they're just speculating and speculating on this. And with food, you can make a lot of money on this. And so what they want to do is to have the price go up in the short term, and long term have low prices. And they want to make the most profit out of this. We don't agree with this. In the contractual agricultural business, we have to sign a contract on how much we're going to deliver of the milk. So I say to my firm that I'm going to give them 100,000 liters for a price of a specific amount of cents. So let's say I get a problem with this production. The cows have a specific problem, it happens. So my company says to me, you promised 100,000, we need 10,000 are missing. So now we have to pay a price, a punishment fee if we don't deliver enough. And if we produce too much, then they come to us and say, you have to also pay as well. We have to sell this. And so the industry has always had an easy time to get to very cheap milk. So this milk that they're allowed to get at a cheap price, they can export it and they can continue to speculate on it. So who's paying for this at the end of the day? A lot of farms are shutting down. I also thinking about not giving it to my farm to my son, because he's going to be more dependent than I am, and at the end of the day nothing is going to belong to us. A lot of farmers are going to disappear, a lot of farms are not going to be there, and maybe less will be produced, but that's actually not a good thing. But the consumers are the ones that are actually paying for this, because the consumer, it doesn't matter what product they're buying, they're going to get a higher price which they have to pay. And they're going to come to us and say, look at how much we're paying for your products. And we can't say anything about it because we are also getting something. So what I'm saying is we have to have the consumers and the producers get together to go against these industrialists. How do we get out of this? Just criticizing, just saying that is a crap, whining, that's not going to help anything. We've done it for a very long time, and our position is clear of the European Milk Board, is that we need a change of the system. We need an agricultural revolution. It's necessary and it's important to have important activities around our union to make ourselves known. It's also important to be serious. If you're not serious, the politicians are not going to listen to you. It's very important to do a lot of lobby work. I've done this myself. I was with 20-30 European parliamentarians, with Karl de Gucht and all these people who are for trade. And this lobby work is the worst thing you can do in your life. It's kissing ass. They promise you everything. They say you're right, you're important. And then behind you have the industry and the banks. This morning I heard that they have so much money to have this type of lobby work. We don't have this type of money, so we can only convince the politicians with clear concepts. We need a flexible quota. We have to produce as much as the population needs. It doesn't make sense to produce food that is not needed. Every farm needs to have a right of supply. For example, 150 billion liters of milk. How can you supply that? Where each 3-4 months you have too much milk one time, sometimes you have too little. In Europe, we need a united system, a single system. In future, in Europe, they want to have every country doing whatever they want. Every country would decide if they have a liberal system. In Germany, they said, we're going to let our farms deliver as much as they want. The French want to have something regulated. The Belgians don't really know. others want to have a quota of production. And if we don't have a single regulation of production, then we're not going to go forward, because they're going to have a faction fight between the German farmers and the French farmers and the Belgian farmers, and they're going to destroy production. And Europe is going to collapse if every country in Europe can do whatever it wants. And we're in a process of destroying Europe, and that is actually what is wanted. So how do we fix this? So we need a centralized leadership structure. We farmers need to have a price that we all have together, that we decide upon together, a minimum price in order to be able to cover all the costs. The dairy farms have to tell us how much milk they need. They have to tell us if we are producing too much, then we reduce how much we supply accordingly. But what is also important is that the consumers are present, so that we don't have a monopoly, so that the consumer at the end of the day has to pay the bill. But we don't want to leave out politics. They have to give the conditions so that we are able to do our job. It is absolutely important that the production of food is not in the hands of these capitalist and industrial powers. The land on which the farmers work on has to belong to the farmers and not these capitalists that take it away from us. And after all is said is done, we don't own anything. And milk has to be affordable. But the consumer has to be aware that these prices have to actually help the farmers to keep up production, so that the profits are enough. For example, in Canada, they have a higher price for milk than in the United States. The consumer in Canada, the consumer pays less for their products than actually in the United States because of this regulation. If this margin of profit is correctly regulated, then we actually have the flow of production that we need. And the farmer has to be independent. And in the same way, politics has to be dependent and free. Because I've heard it all the time said that politics is dependent on these huge monopolies, the huge companies, because they have given the politicians too much money and they are not able now to function without it. So the population, the farmers, and the industry has to be independent. Another point that we also insist upon is that the destiny of the farmers has to be taken into their own hands. Anybody can complain. It's the easiest thing to do, but to be active, to move, to come with new ideas, that's much more difficult. So in Belgium, we've decided that we're founding a new society where you have 1,500 farmers. It's called Faircop. We've created our own label. It's called Fairbel. It's ironic because you have fair for fair and belle for Belgian, but also fair and rebel. And in French you have faire, which means to do, and you have rebelle, which I think is understood in all languages. So faire rebelle, which is now coming on the market, where each farmer 10 cents has to be paid to the farmers directly, and then the rest is going to be distributed out to the rest of the farmers. And we farmers have to rethink the whole situation. We're used to, and this has been told us often, that we just, put our milk out to be picked up, and we just get the money. You don't have a better life. And it's true. We have been going along to get along. So, which other job do you actually know that once you've bought it, you only find out 6 weeks later how much you're going to get for that milk? We have chocolate milk. We have our own ice cream. And what we've noticed with this concept, we can really put a lot of pressure on politicians, because you could ask if the farmers have to do everything themselves all of a sudden. And at this stage I say no. We have packaged the milk and we've sold it to our consumers, and everybody has done the same thing in Belgium, and you see how far it's gone. So in Belgium we have established a system. 80%, 90% of products that are bought in the supermarket are have the label of the single producer. The labels that you find in the supermarket belong to the single producer. So if you own this label, every producer who has the products in the supermarket, you can play them one against the other. So in order to come into the market with your own label, this is being blocked. But because we've done this demonstration in Brussels, we have become known. If you want to change politics, and I know we can change politics, we see it, people are changing the way they think. You have to be serious about what you're doing, you have to be aggressive, not be violent, but to put them under pressure so that they are forced to change. Just to rhetorically, have loud slogans, you never change politics. So I think that's enough for now. It's very late. I'm very happy that I am allowed to speak in front of all these professors, students, academicians, that I'm allowed to actually say my mind. And today, I met so many young people in the hall. I wasn't sure what I had got myself into. So I came on the invitation of a very good friend. And I saw all these young people, and I want to give them courage to continue fighting. It's worth it. It's hard. It's going to cost you a lot of energy and emotions. And also the senior people in the audience, I want to encourage you to fight for your future, because the future belongs to you. And this future that belongs to us, if we let it stay in the hands of these bankers, then it's going to be your children and their children that have to pay the price. And we are indebted to our forebears that we do it.